The NBA offseason is completely dead right now. There is nothing happening apart from rumors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some different teams, what they did in the offseason, expectations for the season, and just different stuff surrounding the team. It's going to be pretty unscripted, so just whatever I'm thinking about them. And yeah, today I'm going to talk about the Nets. So before I get into that video, if you're new to this channel, like and subscribe because it helps me out and you'll get more content like the video you're about to see. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on to the video. So the Nets had a pretty interesting offseason. They honestly didn't need to do much because last year they would have made the finals if fully healthy. They barely missed out on the Eastern Conference Finals where they would have played the Hawks and they would have won that series in probably 5 or 6. And in the final, we don't need to get into predictions for whatever, but yeah, they would have been in the finals if fully healthy. So honestly, their only needs for this season just was to bring the same team back and be fully healthy. They brought pretty much everyone back besides DeAndre Jordan, and they made some pretty good acquisitions as well. Their first acquisition was Patty Mills, who can be a pretty good shot creator off the bench. He brings you some scoring off the bench when you already have really good shooting and you have 2 of the 3 best scorers in the league with James Harden and Kevin Durant. So I really like the Patty Mills acquisition, and I think if one of them gets injured, he can come in and give you a lot of volume and score a lot and just really complement the Nets' heavy shooting offense and just all the scoring that they do. So I like the Patty Mills acquisition. The 2 really interesting ones that happened more recently, I think they happened on the same day maybe. The Nets got Paul Millsap and they got Lamarcus Aldridge. Now both of these players are 36, so they are pretty likely to get injured. But the hope for them is that they're going to be healthy come playoff time because that's when they're going to be effective. Like if you can have them play 40 to 50 games and be pretty productive throughout the entire season. Now, I'm not going to say they're injury prone, but like they're 36. They don't really have a career history of getting injured all the time. Besides Lamarcus Aldridge with the whole health thing, I don't really understand how he came back after like 4 months of being out and he was scared to play because of his heart condition. But let's hope it's better. In the 5 games he played for the Nets last year, he was really effective. I think he shot like 80% from 3. Obviously, it's a really small sample size, but he was kind of camping out at the 3-point line and spacing the floor for the Nets, which is what they need with their offense. Like, they run a decent amount of small ball, and a lot of their centers, besides Nicholas Claxton, can space the floor. So, yeah, he was pretty good. You're not really going to see him being inside as much or playing bully ball because that was never his play style, but you're going to see him in the high post a lot, stretching the floor, shooting on the outside, which is good for the Nets. He's going to be effective. Is he good defensively? Not really. He can be okay in team defense. One-on-one defense, he's not the best. But yeah, I really like the Lamarcus signing because he played really well for them in the small amount of games he played for them last year. And I think he'll be pretty good to come in and stretch the floor. Do I think he's going to start over Blake Griffin? Probably not. I'd have Blake start just because he's better defensively. Blake can also stretch the floor. He shot pretty well for the Nets last year. So, yeah, I think the Lamarcus signing's pretty good. Paul Millsap is another really interesting one because with Paul Millsap, you get a pretty good defender. He can stretch the floor a little bit. He shot says he shot 34% from 3 last year. So, yeah, you can get him in and you can run him at the small ball 5 if you want. He's more of a power forward. But he's going to come in and he's going to be pretty good defensively when you have Claxton as a good defender as well. So you kind of have a lot of depth at the front court. Paul Millsap, he can run pretty well. He can still run in the pick and roll. And he's 36, but he's still decently athletic and he can still run the floor in transition. And he doesn't really get injured too much. He's never really been out besides for a broken hand. I forget when that was, but with the Nuggets. So he's not that injury prone. I think he'll come and he'll fit the Nets pretty well, especially defensively. So you have 4 people that you could play at center. DeAndre Jordan's gone. He's on the Lakers. He didn't really play for them in the playoffs, so that doesn't really matter. But, yeah, you got Nicholas Claxton, you got Blake Griffin, you've got Paul Millsap, and you've got Lamarcus Aldridge. And that's crazy to think about because last year a ton of people were talking about how the Nets really didn't have that much depth or they didn't really have that many people in the front court. And they were like, oh, you can have James Harden, you can have Kyrie Irving, you can have Kevin Durant. But you don't have anyone in the front court that can defend or score on the inside besides Blake Griffin when they got him. But before that, before Blake Griffin signed, that was more of an issue. But you've got Blake, you've got Lamarcus, you've got Paul Millsap, who can all be really productive centers. 3 of them can space the floor, and then you've got Nicholas Claxton, who can't really space the floor. But I could honestly see Nicholas Claxton getting a good amount of minutes this year. He caught a lot of lobs. He was a big lob threat. He was just kind of like barreling to the rim and just dunking a lot. He didn't really do much outside of that, but they didn't really need him to. So the Nets do have a competent front court. And getting into some other things, the Nets have 2 of the 3 best scorers in the league in Kevin Durant and James Harden. So the shooting on this team is ridiculous as it was last year, but let's hope everyone's healthy because everything's more fun when the Nets are healthy. And the shooting on this team is absolutely ridiculous. You have Kyrie Irving, who's a good shooter. You have James Harden, who's a great shooter. You have Kevin Durant, who's a great shooter. Joe Harris, who besides for that Bucks series where he was atrocious and part of the reason they lost, he's been really good. You have Patty Mills, who mostly shoots off the catch but can create for himself a little bit off the bench, which is good, which is what they need. Blake Griffin can space the floor a little bit. He shot 38% last year. Lamarcus Aldridge can definitely space the floor for you and shoot. Paul Millsap is not an awful shooter. And another thing is the Nets got Cam Thomas in the draft, which I think is really underrated. He was co-MVP in the Summer League. He just showed that he's like a pure scorer like he was at LSU. He's able to shoot the 3-ball pretty well. He shot better in Summer League than he did in college. And, I mean, his handles are ridiculous. His ability to create for himself is really good. I think he'll be – I don't know if he'll make their 8-man rotation in the playoffs, but I definitely think he's going to play a lot in the regular season. And he'll be a pretty key role for them, so I think Cam Thomas is going to get some minutes. I'd say probably 20, 25 a game. But, I mean, with all the Nets did this year, you literally have so many options for the lineups you can run. I think the starting lineup for the Nets should probably be you run James Harden at point because you've been running Kyrie at shooting guard all of last year, and that was pretty effective. You run Kyrie at shooting guard. You run Joe Harris at small forward. Kevin Durant at power forward, and then you've got Blake Griffin at center, and that's the lineup they had last year. But the main thing is their depth has been improved a whole lot based off of last year. And then on the bench, you have Nicholas Claxton, Paul Millsap, Lamarcus Aldridge, Patty Mills, Bruce Brown, Cam Thomas, and I'm definitely forgetting some people. You have Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, but he didn't really serve much of a role last year. And then I think they also got Sekou Doumbouya this year, who I don't think will play that much of a role, but it's weird that they waived Jahlil Okafor but didn't waive Sekou, so obviously they believe in him a little bit, so maybe he'll play some sort of a role. But yeah, that'll be the starting lineup. Then you can throw in some really good defenders in there. You have a pretty good defensive team. You want to throw in a defensive lineup, this is what I would run. I would run James Harden at the point, but James Harden's not the greatest defender. He has improved, but whatever. The rest of the lineup is better defensively. Bruce Brown at shooting guard, Kevin Durant at small forward, Blake Griffin at power forward, and Paul Millsap at center. And then if you want to run a scoring lineup, if you need a lot of shot creators and a lot of scorers, you can pretty much run anyone in there because a lot of these people are really effective scorers and high volume scorers for them. Patty Mills, I could see him getting a lot of volume. Cam Thomas, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, all those people. So just the amount of options you have with lineups you can run. Even if people get injured, you have a lot of people you can put in off the bench or just other people you can rely on. I completely forgot to mention this. The Nets lost Jeff Green, who was really important for them in that, what series was it that he was in? It was in the Bucks series. He was really important. I think it was Game 5. He had 27. So that's a decent loss for you. But honestly, with everyone you've signed, and Patty Mills, who can kind of be that veteran guy that can score for you when you need him to, because he doesn't really get injured that much. He's had multiple seasons playing 82 games. You can fill in for Jeff Green pretty effortlessly. And you have a team that just has so many options. It's looking like it's going to be the Nets and the Lakers in the finals. I know this is kind of a casual fan's take, but if injuries don't happen and another team doesn't make a big move, I don't even know what could get a team to be ahead of this. To be ahead of these two, trade-wise or anything like that. But yeah, We thought it was going to be Nets-Lakers last year, but it's looking like these are the two teams this year without a doubt if everyone stays healthy. But yeah, everyone definitely could get injured because everyone's pretty old, but like, let's hope they don't. Let's hope it's minimal injuries, and like at least Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden can play like 50 or 60 games together, because they've barely played any games together. It's normally just been 2 of the 3, or part of the playoffs where it's just Kevin Durant, 1 of the 3. So I want to see what both of these teams can do at full strength. The Nets got a lot better this offseason, and it's looking like they should be the title favorites. I don't know if they're deeper than the Lakers or if they're better than the Lakers, but they're definitely in that S tier with the Lakers, and they're the only 2 teams in the S tier. So, yeah, the Nets got a whole lot better. It'll be interesting to see how they play. That's it for the video. See ya.